Welcome to the Required Summer Reading Program, Brief Introduction to IEW. My name is Jonna Nair, and I'm the Frameworks and Fundamentals Academic Team Leader. This presentation will introduce you to IEW and explain the IEW philosophy of teaching writing. If you have any questions after this presentation, you can email me at jonnan@circlechristianschool.org. In this presentation, we're going to talk about the writing program that we use in Frameworks and Fundamentals. It's called IEW, which stands for Institute for Excellence in Writing. And you can find more information about IEW at excellenceinwriting.com. We chose this program because it's a systematic writing program that teaches both structure and style. It takes your student from reading to outlining to writing. And the benefit of this particular program is that it begins with modeling. It shows your student exactly how to follow the process of writing, and then it works towards invention, which is a student thinking up his own writing ideas from his brain. In the beginning, IEW uses checklists, which show your student exactly what's required for each writing assignment, how fancy it needs to be, and whether it is done. For boys and girls who would rather be outside building forts, this is especially important. As important as it is, have you noticed how much most students hate writing? The main problem that students have, the problem that makes them hate writing, is that they can't think of anything to write. Why can't they think of anything to write? One reason is most young students haven't learned to think yet, because what is thinking? Basically, thinking is asking yourself questions. But if you don't know what questions to ask, how can you think? So, we want to teach our students to ask themselves the right questions and train them to think. You'll see how we do this in a bit when we discuss the keyword outline. The second reason kids have trouble writing is that you can't make something out of nothing. You only get out what you've already put in. And not to put too fine a point on it, but you could say garbage in, garbage out. In other words, if your student only reads throwaway books and never classic literature or high-quality modern literature, they're only going to be able to produce low-quality writing. They need reliably correct and sophisticated language patterns in their brain already in order to reproduce them in a writing assignment. So if it's so hard, why do we teach students to write anyway? Because it forces them to think. Writing develops critical thinking skills. And after all, the clear expression of thoughts and ideas is a foundational skill that all students need to learn, and the earlier, the better. But how do we learn these ideas to express them? Through reading. If you can read, you can teach yourself almost anything with some guidance from an expert. We call those teachers. And if you can think independently, you can form your own ideas about what you've learned. And if you can write, you can express those ideas in a way that not only shows what you've learned, but that can persuade others to believe as you do. And this is especially important as it's part of our calling as Christians to profess our faith and explain it when people have questions. 1 Peter 3:15 says, "Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect." In other words, use structure and style in your speaking and writing. Finally, let's talk about the secrets to good writing, reading aloud, and memorization. First, let's just face the facts. Students need to read good books. These are classic works of literature or modern works that reflect the attributes of classic literature. These are not junk food, like so many books written today are. Most books published by modern presses are designed to make money for the publisher and the author. They're easy reads, and children are compelled to read, and more importantly buy, the next books in the series by simple plots, cliched characters, and distinctly unchallenging thematic content. Think about today's books and how they feed children's egos and fantasies with non-existent or bumbling parents, superhero children who never need help from adults, and imaginary worlds where children are able to create their own destinies. Then consider more classic literature that emphasizes the importance of sacrifice, perseverance, introspection, hard work, and so on. Now, let's be honest. Just like my children and I eat at McDonald's occasionally, we also read junk food sometimes. But have you noticed that the more you eat junk food, the more you want it, and the more you're only satisfied by it? It's the same with reading. If there's one habit I would absolutely recommend you implement in your home, it's a mandatory reading time of 30 minutes to an hour a day, depending on the age of your child. And now for another practice that's become less popular over the years, memorization. Memorizing and reciting poetry, speeches, and even presentations will have a dramatic and immediate influence on your students' writing. Both reading and memorizing are the perfect methods for getting reliably correct and sophisticated language patterns into students' brains. And remember, if you want reliably correct and sophisticated language patterns in their writing, you need to get reliably correct and sophisticated language patterns into their heads in the first place. So, to sum up, reading aloud and reciting, in other words, hearing language, are the keys to good writing. Think about it. Have you ever spent a lot of time with someone with an accent only to find yourself mimicking their accent? It's the same with writing. Students imitate what they hear, whether it's a good book read aloud, a poem they are reciting, or whatever's on the television. Now that's a scary thought. If you'd like more information on IEW's philosophy of reading, writing, and thinking, you can find many resources at their website. Visit excellenceinwriting.com and you'll find articles, free audio downloads, and webinars about a number of educational topics. You can also email me with any questions about this presentation at jonna.n@circlechristianschool.org.